Hello and welcome everybody to a special edition of the Buy Round where we are doing our post-Origin NRL report card. All the 17 teams under the spotlight, myself and Charlie White are going to take a deep dive into the season so far and what is ahead for each and every NRL football club.
It's going to be a lot of fun, Jimmy. I imagine some of the reports you're going to give are pretty straightforward. You know, the Titans haven't gone very well. The Raiders have obviously gone very well. But it's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah, every single club. We're recording this after Origin. We were going to do it the mid-season. We were actually going to do it the quarter part of the season. Then we were going to do it a third of the way through the season. Then we were going to do it at the halfway point. But we thought, no. Let's do it post-Origin.
Well, I think now that what NRL clubs would deem the distraction, not necessarily used in a negative way, but Origin is a distraction, and with around about a third of the season to go, this is where things really do heat up, and I think that there is still a few positions on the ladder to be determined, but I think now that, like I say, distraction is over and done with, we can get stuck into each team's season so far. Just firstly, as a whole of game, where we're at, wow. The unpredictability of the competition, the games never being over until the 80 minutes. If a team is down by, let's say 14, 16 points with 7 minutes to go, as a fan, I'm not turning off.
No.
I'm not convinced that it's over.
Mate, even we've got the ladder here in front of us. You look at that ladder. If it was the Storm played the Bunnies not long ago and that was a nail-biting game, a thrilling finish. Any game, any outcome can happen.
Yeah.
It's been such a good series, year of footy. Even, mate, we talk about this just distraction of Origin. Feels like this year just gone has been the least distraction it's ever been to the NRL comp as a whole. Like every round of footy during those bye rounds even has been exceptional.
Yeah, I've got to agree with that, Charlie. And the NRL, the jewel in the crown is the State of Origin that delivered. And I think now attention turns back to the regular competition. We've got some enthralling contests that are on the horizon, even before finals.
Yeah, we got a great race for the 8.
Yeah.
We're recording this the morning after State of Origin Game 3, so before this round has been completed, round 19. So just take that into account because we're going to work our way up the ladder. Yeah. Origin last was amazing. Yours and Cheese's show recap, and it was fantastic, as always, mate, by the way. Did a great job.
How incredible was Cheese's story from Cam Munster?
Yeah.
It was making me choke up.
Yeah, mate, it's insane.
And he'd already told me, but again, putting it into context.
Yeah. I wonder if Billy would be tempted to walk away from Origin now. 3 series out of 4. He's the most perfect coaching series with all the pressure that was put on him, and every decision he made ended up being the right decision.
Yeah. Yeah, he's almost completed it.
Yeah. If I know that all the talk has been when Bellamy moves on, Billy Slater will take that role. Don't know. Maybe does Australia now say to Billy, "Hey mate, do you want to maybe walk away from Queensland and come be the Australian coach?"
That is a great shout. It really is in a similar path of Mal Meninga.
Yeah.
Almost completed Origin player coach. People talked about Nathan Cleary in the final frontier for him, but Billy Slater as a all of game player and coach, media commentator. He's ticked everything. He's done everything as a player, done everything as a commentator. Now with a coach's hat on, completed Origin, Australia, and then maybe club. It's almost the ultimate. It's like and with Origin, as a kid playing a computer game, Metal Gear Solid. Once I'd completed it.
Got sick of it pretty quickly.
It was done.
Yeah, it's done.
I didn't go back and play anymore.
Yeah. Once you finish GTA, you're
obviously,
not going to go back and do it all over again.
I mean, some games the fortnight and the like, you're
FIFA.
enticed.
You can always find a different team to take to the top.
You've got a
Dagenham and Redbridge was mine.
Yeah, you've got all those elements to consider. But with a game like Metal Gear Solid, when it's done, it's done.
It's done. All right. Well, what's done is the Gold Coast Titans season. So let's start with them. They're obviously not going to make the top 8. They're sitting last. 4 wins so far this season. Now, the story came out this week that Des Hasler's retiring. That hasn't been confirmed. That has done the rounds as a big rumour that he's bought this place in Mollymook and he's going to be retiring at the end of the year. The coaching clause that he has in his contract as well, where he wouldn't get next year anyway if they didn't make the top 8. But overall, Jimmy, for the Titans, they haven't had the best of luck with injuries to Keanu Kinney getting injured very early on in the year, and also the issues with David Fifita's injury and form as well. So it's just been a tough year around for them, really.
It's been tough and it's been disastrous. It really has. With the strength of roster, one of the rare positions of an NRL club to be able to remain out of the spotlight when things do go bad or performances aren't up to scratch. They really should be performing better. I think looking at Dez's tenure there, looking at last year in particular, awful start, really good middle part of the season, and then they faded away. But I think they would have looked at that middle part of the season. We obviously spoke to Tino Fa'asuamaleaui and how like his love for Dez, his appreciation for Dez, that bond that he has with Fifita, and how they made a pact together, the emergence of Keanu Kinney, the coaching headache that would be desired by most coaches in who do I pick as my fullback, because there's 3 genuine gun fullbacks at that football club. A lot of people aren't afforded that luxury. How they all fit into the equation, it's been awful. Like there's no disguising that they have massively underachieved. A number of experts had them in their top 8. It seems that a lot of the ingredients are there, and they get the lowest available score, which is an E.
An E. No, not even an F. Do you do Fs?
No.
No, E's your lowest score.
I think E is lowest.
Okay.
F is failure.
Failure to even like attempt.
Yeah. You don't show up.
You don't show up. You don't get marked.
I mean, well, like that's the Newtown Jets. they don't appear.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I hear you. Mate, the Keanu Kinney injury though, that was huge for them. I think they started the season, they were 2 wins, 1 loss. They were 1 win, 1 loss when Keanu Kinney got injured.
Well, Charlie, it is a big injury, but with the roster situation that the Titans have, that injury is quite easily offset. Like I say, when you've got Jaden Campbell and AJ Brimson.
They tried to play De Groot there a little bit as well.
Yeah.
Because they obviously, because Foran was injured as well.
Yeah.
So then they had to go with Campbell and Brimson in the halves. You know, I think the reporting coming out that Des Hasler's retiring, I think that's the kind of report you maybe let him come out and say. I know obviously it's been broken this week that he's going to retire, but he's probably your favorite coach you've ever had, Jimmy. Like, talk us through a bit of Des Hasler and what he means to you and the incredible coaching career he's had.
Yeah. I for one, hope that this isn't the end of Des. And this talk of retirement, obviously, like me and Des had a very close player-coach relationship. Very close. He stood up for me when a lot of people weren't. He stood up for me when a lot of people wouldn't. So I'm forever indebted to him for that. He taught me a lot in that aspect of life about standing up for people. He, in terms of like with football, he and the impact he had on me. I think he forced me to a way to get to my footballing potential, and at different stages in my career, I needed certain types of coaches, and to come to the NRL as an Englishman with a lot of stress and pressure, I'm very thankful and grateful that our paths crossed, and he was my coach coming here. But just on it was a long time ago. So and numerous years. End of 2017, we went our separate ways. The Hasler I know doesn't just retire or walk away. I think about the time he was away from the game and he wasn't coaching. Must have been taught. Like I worried for him because I just know how much he needs a cause. He needs to be involved. He's got a love of coaching, like a lot of coaches do. You know, I think of Mary McGregor that's not in the game now. I know he loves coaching, and that's all his desire is to do.
65 in February, Hasler.
What's he gonna? You don't retire at 65.
Yeah,
65 is young. 65 is young. Look at Wayne Bennett. He's in mid-70s.
Yeah,
like you don't just build a house in Mollymuck and what are we talking like? Like
go looking at the Dolphins. You go dolphin watching around there, whale watching. Play the golf. There's the Hilltop Golf Course at Mollymuck.
You think an NRL coach can go from the most intense, high pressure stakes to just it'd be like putting him in a care home. You know it's over. Like he doesn't go to Mollymuck and just retire. No, I'd be amazed if he hangs up the clipboard.
The issue for him though is there might not be a ton of NRL jobs that become available for him. Did you feel like the Titans was his last crack as an NRL head coach? So maybe he has to go to England if he wants to keep doing that. Yeah, and I'm sure he'd be able to get an opportunity over there.
Yeah, potentially. But as we've seen with new teams coming into the competition, obviously Perth have gone with Mal. That was probably unexpected.
Yep.
A new PNG team coming in.
Does sound like Jason Demetrio is going to get that job there.
It does, but it also Perth Bears also sounded like Brad Arthur was going to get that job.
Yeah, that's true.
And things change and opportunities present themselves. Just on that with Des, he probably doesn't have many friends within the media, if that makes sense, to sort of push that opportunity. But in terms of what is happening at the Titans, like he will be taking full responsibility. I feel as though this clause was fed to the media to get a gauge on where things are at. I think people are now accepting that this will happen. Personally, I think the amount of noise, it's hard to see him there with that clause being in place. I think they will go in a different direction, but it is ultimately a season of failure for the Titans. And with the Tigers winning that game against the Roosters, I know they still have 9 games to play, 2 against the Tigers. Given they're 4 and against, they have to win those 2 against the Tigers because, well, they're just,
mate, I think the Tigers are safe from getting the spoon. I think the Titans are almost a lock at this point for the spoon. I think, in all honesty. I know they're one of those teams that could come good, but I think you nailed it. An E grade for them. Moving on into the Bunnies, Jimmy, because the Bunnies are sort of, it's a really interesting season they've had. So after 5 rounds, they were 4 wins, 1 loss. That was Cody Walker and Jamie Humphries were the halves for every one of those games. Since then, they've had 6 different halves combinations, and they've only won 2 from their last 12 games. It's been a complete flip, and injuries have really cost them. The Cam Murray injury for the Achilles before a ball was kicked was huge for them. Josh Schuster, the roll of the dice with him didn't work. And yeah, just having to chop and change their halves so constantly has really cost them.
Yeah, I think the Schuster was a low cost risk.
Yeah.
And I think a risk worth taking.
Yeah.
But it's been no excuse for injuries. All clubs have them. We're not letting the Titans off with that excuse. We can't let Souths off with that excuse. But I think one of the key elements of Souths is their performances. Like, they've performed well. They don't look like a team that currently sits in 16th, and that's why I think, considering the start of the season they had with the injuries, I'm going to give them a C.
A C?
Yeah.
Really?
I think they've actually they're over where they should be at in terms of performance.
Okay.
So I think we are in the results-based industry. I talk about this all the time, but you analyse their performances. Melbourne Storm by a point. They pushed the Bulldogs. They pushed the Raiders. So they're consistently performing against teams at the top of the table. You could maybe go C-, D, like D+ kind of situation. They're in the very much the lower end of the C.
Yep. Were you giving them a C- or a C?
So we're allowed to.
You may, of course, you can do your minuses and your pluses and all that jazz. That's fine.
All right. Okay. All right. Well, I'll give them a C- then.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe a D. What's the difference between a C- and a D+?
Well, I think a C is a pass. A C used to be a pass, I think. C, maybe it's 50%. Anything above 51% is a C. I could be wrong, though.
Well, let's, for the purposes of today, we'll give C is a pass. We're accepting of the situation. So, look, and that probably is the case if you're the key decision makers, the CEO, the board at South Sydney. You're giving them a pass. You're giving Wayne and the current team a pass mark, maybe with the caveat of the minus, and going, well, how can we ensure that we win those close games? And one of those elements to consider is the combination within the halves, and obviously when they're doing the review at the end of the season, or they're reviewing it now like we are, you can't not look past the signing of Lewis Dodd. We talked about Schuster being a low-risk play. Well, for those people that bought Lewis Dodd to the club, you've got to go, well, why were we so convinced he was going to be our 7? He's being paid like a starting 7, but he's not our starting 7. So that is one of the key questions that I think they would be examining, because that clearly hasn't worked with Lewis Dodd and Wayne Bennett as the coach.
Yeah. Mate, the thing that will define the Bunnies of the last 4 years is probably the decision to let Adam Reynolds go, and all the different things that came from that. Lockie Ilias now plays reserve grade for the Dragons, so picking him over Reynolds was a big mistake. And my understanding is that Blake Solly was the person who made the decision to move on from Adam Reynolds, and their cap now is so tight, and the mistake they've made with Lewis Dodd is kind of, it's really going to screw them from a caps perspective, because it's going to
3 or 4 years.
Yeah, I think it was a 3-year deal, $700,000 a year. Like, it's really going to screw them. The Jack Whiten decision to purchase him, yes, they got him at a decent deal. I think he was offered $1 million a year at the Canberra Raiders. They got him for $800,000. That's going to hurt them as well. They really need middles, but they've got no money in their cap now.
Well, they need Cam Murray back.
Yeah,
as well. He is their best middle and one of the best middles in the competition, but they probably lack a bit in the bigger area. Obviously, Keon Kaloma-Tangi has moved into that front row spot.
Tallis Duncan's been incredible this year. I think when he's played well, he's had some really good games.
Guy Arrow coming playing more of a front row style, but they're a bit light in the middle.
Yeah,
like when you think of those that early 2010s when they won that competition, it was the 3 Burgess boys, the 4 Burgess boys, Johnny Sutton, like big players, and even although teams like the Dogs have I guess a lighter middle, they're not that side. I think they do need some genuine help in the middle. And when you've got the half situation, and probably a big call round the corner for them is Cody Walker, who's an amazing footballer. He really is, but Father Time gets us all. And maybe not his ability to perform is in question here, but his ability or capability to get onto the field is something that needs to be considered. Now, maybe that's something you look at the training methods involved for that particular player, because that's where they need him. They need him to play. They don't need him to train. They need him to play. And some continuity, some consistency in the halves is what is going to be super important for them moving forward. But the observation of their season would be they just about pass. Yeah. And I don't know if they've got room for major change next year without giving Lewis Dodd the tap and having either another NRL club or a Super League club.
Well, mate, if another NRL club came in, they'd be having to pay $500,000 a year of it, because what NRL club's going to come in and even have the need for Lewis Dodd?
Well,
mate, the fact that he hasn't, I've run you through all those 6 different halves combinations since round 5 for the South Sydney Rabbitohs. How many of them involve Lewis Dodd, do you think?
One,
correct.
Yeah.
He played 5-8 in one game.
Yeah, so that shows where he is in the pecking order at South. And they've probably got a few that are players that are a bit similar in ability, and it's really hard to split. So you've got your Humphreys. Look, he's been really good for NRL. You've got Jaden Sullivan. Well, who's actually the partner of Cody Walker if everyone's fit? We kind of don't know.
We don't know. No, we don't.
Yeah, and they're not paying a massive amount of money to Wests to keep Sullivan there. But maybe that's something they can't afford to do next year. That's a bit of a luxury that they, we've got Humphreys, we've got Walker, we've got Dodd. Do we need another half? Like, yeah, he goes well for us, but is that essential right now? No. What's essential is a middle.
100%. Cody Walker, 8 appearances this season. He's played 2 games since round 7. Calf injuries, hamstring injuries. The calf is the worst thing you want to hear for an older player as well, because that is an old man injury. That is just going to keep. He's just going to keep getting that as well.
And just quickly, one of the things on South, maybe the Cheese could be a great signing to play that middle style role. But then when Cam Murray comes in, he's the lock. It's a perplexing one.
Yeah,
they've got the coach. A couple of middles would be top of the shopping list.
And they've got Latrell Mitchell, who can win them a game. Like that game, like the game he had against the Broncos this season, if he can have like 5 or 6 of those sorts of performances a year, they'll be a top 8 team easily. Like, in all honesty.
His ability to close out those... He's probably the one that they look to a bit too much to close out that tight game.
Yeah.
And not their halves.
Another great thing for them and for Bunnies fans to look forward to for the end of the season is Alex Johnson. Can he break the try-scoring record this year? I think he'll probably get there, especially if Latrell Mitchell keeps giving him those beautiful balls. Moving up the ladder then, the Parramatta Eels, Jimmy. I'm very interested to see actually what you're going to give them if you're giving South a C, because the Eels, it's been a weird year. The biggest issues at the start of the year, they were really struggling. It was panic stations. Dylan Brown signs a 10-year deal with the Newcastle Knights. He's out the door. Mitchell Moses has basically been out of the team for most of the year. I think he's played 6 games in total. They missed out on Lockie Galvin. They've brought in Talon De Silva. They got rid of Gutho. It's a masterstroke. Iongi looks like a superstar of the future. They've had some real highs. They've had some lows. But overall, what do you make of the Eel season?
Yeah, it's the overall. I'm still in the D.
Okay.
Then they don't quite get the pass mark.
Okay.
You go on recent form that they perform quite well, but they're still lacking. And I reckon internally they're exactly the same. They're looking at it and going, this is not okay. We're not happy with this. We've still got a ton of work to do. And maybe the majority of that work needs to be done off the field in terms of management of roster, But for on the field, they've shown good signs, but not too crash hot, especially at the beginning of the season. Like, to lose your first game by 50 is a poor sign.
Yeah.
And you can't forget that.
No. I will say, though, this is a transition year, though, and think about all the players they've tapped on the shoulder. Like, Gutho obviously left during the off-season, but then this year they've tapped Sean Lane on the shoulder, Bryce Cartwright, a ton of other players. Like, they're cleaning this roster out. They're bringing in a new era. And, mate, they've shown some fight for Jason Riles. And I've loved Iongi. I can't say that enough. I think he's going to be an absolute superstar.
Yeah, but again, if C is a pass mark, I don't give them a pass.
Yeah. But they're heading in the right direction, though. And they've got a lot of flexibility over the next few years with their cap as well. They've obviously got their spine pretty much locked in now. Iongi's going to be their fullback hopefully for them for the next 10 years. You got Mitchell Moses, who's just got a long-term contract. He'll be there for the next 5 years.
His clauses being removed. That's integral. You know, we spoke about Origin before. One of the big winners by default is Mitchell Moses.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, big winner. So, like, obviously he was the mastermind of the win in last year's series. They won game 1 with him in.
Yeah,
he's not there. One of the big winners from Origin is Mitchell Moses, and how Riles can tap into that narrative and that mentality for Mitchell to give him the confidence to say, mate, you're better than Nathan here.
Yeah.
Like, Nathan gets all the credit, and rightly so, and deserved. But that individual mindset for Moses, if he can have a fully fit season, he'll be benefiting from what's happened at Origin.
Yeah. And then they've got Talon De Silva now signed for the next 4.5 years as well. So that spine's starting to take shape. They probably need to figure out who's going to be their 5'8" long term. Is it Joash Papali? He looks like a good young player. But I don't know, under Riles, I think they've had a better season than the Bunnies, given we knew this was a transition year for Parramatta.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can understand how you make that argument. I think the Bunnies get a pass because they started really well, and they got the victories, and they've been, destroyed with injury, where the Eels have really underperformed in a number of games and a number of contests. It's funny how they would look forward and say, okay, who is going to partner Mitchell Moses? I reckon this is one of those where you don't necessarily need a big name. You just need someone who can be steady and complement Mitch. Mitch runs the show. So you don't need to go, we need another Dylan Brown. You actually probably want to put more responsibility on Mitchell Moses. Yeah. Not less. I think Cheese and I spoke about this yesterday, about that the hierarchy of a team. Mitchell Moses is the man. That's the way they look to. Look, Eels very close to getting a pass, but I think there's some really poor performances that stood out.
They're still very much in the spoon race as well. Like, they're one win ahead of the Titans, and they're 4 and against. Looking at the ladder here, they've got minus 103 points coming into a game against Penrith on Sunday.
Yeah, so they're on 5 wins.
5 wins.
Titans currently
on 4 wins.
On 4, obviously big 4 and against in favour of the Titans.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they're still in that battle.
They're still in the battle, and that again, Charlie's probably another reason why they're in the D category. They've not managed to escape that yet, and you could argue neither have Souths.
Yeah,
but they've got one extra win, and
exactly.
And it's going to be a fine margin down there at the bottom.
100%. The West Tigers, Jimmy, everybody's favourite club to talk about. This has been a year where they've shown improvement. However, they've had big slumps. They've had long slumps. I think they lost 5 games in a row there at one point. They're 6 games in a row, actually, it was at one point. They've had a lot of drama, though. This has been a year filled with drama for them, as it always is. They're like the Real Housewives of the NRL, the West Tigers. They just find drama at every turn. The issues this year, obviously, Lockie Galvin and all that saga that went on. Talon De Silva's walked out the door. Benji Marshall's putting shots on players. it's the gift that always gives the West Tigers. But how do you sum their season up?
You know, it's funny, Charlie. I'm probably a bit more concerned that you watch The Real Housewives.
Yeah, I don't watch The Real Housewives, but I'm aware of culture.
How do you even know what it is?
How do I know of something like The Real Housewives? It's just called being aware of culture, mate. I'm a man who knows culture.
Yeah.
Real Housewives is out there. Do you know what, though? My dad used to watch it a lot growing up. My dad would watch it. My dad and my mum would always be watching Real Housewives on a night when I was young. So yeah, they loved it. That's how I'm across it. My dad was a big fan. My dad loves all that like reality trash TV. Yeah, Love Island. What else is there? Yeah, all that stuff.
We don't need to get into it. I will give you this about myself though. I did go through a huge phase of Teen Mum 2.
Teen Mum.
Teen Mum 2.
Teen Mom.
Teen Mum. Not Teen Mum. Teen Mum 2.
UK version or
the
US version?
US version. Just what captivating. Beyond reasonable doubt. I was just. I couldn't wait for a Sunday to watch an episode of it. But anyway, we digress.
I used to love Big Brother. Big Brother was my one I loved, and Survivor. I almost went on Love Island, that TV show. Because I got offered a contract to go on it.
Did you?
Yeah. And then I got Tom Birmingham, who works at Hello Sport. I was working with him at Triple M, and he left the company to do a full-time job at a different radio network, and his job became available, and they offered it to me at the same time I got offered to go on Love Island. So I was going to go on. I was actually going to go on Love Island.
Sliding doors moment.
Yeah.
Oh,
Either way.
Indeed.
Team Mom 2.
Just putting up the Team Mom 2. Oh yeah.
11 seasons of it, Jimmy.
Yeah,
How many seasons did you get through?
I can't remember. It was good though.
It's on Stan. Get it. You can watch it today on Stan.
I don't know if I want to go back there. I mean, within the addiction that I managed to wean off, and glad it's not part of my life anymore. But the Tigers, they are a part of our lives, and
that's the Tigers is reality TV for blokes.
Yeah, car crash TV. Yeah. And just when you think they just when they get their license back, they just can't help but just speed.
Yeah.
Or
they've got the need to speed.
They've got the need to speed, or driving under the influence, or whatever it may be. They just can't help themselves out.
They're masochists.
Yeah. I think Tigers are in the D category.
Okay.
And I say this because of all the noise and all the drama. And look, on field, they've improved. They've just not improved enough. And I think when you look at as to reasons why, maybe part of that is all the news stories that go on around them. And as a player, you can't escape that. As hard as you try, you cannot escape the fact that your team is being spoken about that. And you can, use it as a motivator. I've been there myself when a coach has been under pressure and I want to perform for him. But you can't ignore the fact that, and also as a player, I think you would naturally be questioning what is the direction of this club. I'm being told this by Benji Richardson and maybe some other power brokers, but the reality of the situation is you can't help but, like, even if you're Luai or May, some of the Coruscant their best, you can't help but look around at that football club and go, why are these two young players going? Like, you would have that self-doubt. Why are they leaving? I've experienced that before, where players have left and gone, why are they especially being young, you would have to question what, and you'd have full belief and almost blind faith. Sometimes it can get to that point. Now I've got blind faith, but if you can't see the wood for the trees, sometimes that's dangerous. And I know that they would say with De Silva and Galvin, a multitude of reasons as to why they left, but that is not good. I don't think anybody deep down that is a fan of the Tigers, or if you're in that organization, you're not going, this is good. We're now better for them not being here. And And with the Tigers, there's always a news story on the horizon that we can forecast. Api Coruscant, not officially signed yet. That's got potential hurdles.
It does, but sure. The issue is
I heard Richo on 360 and he was very confident, but
he'll stay. Mate, Api will stay. The only issue for the Tigers, though, is they've given Api Coruscant and his management all the power.
yeah.
So he wanted $800,000. I think the Tigers wanted to pay $600,000. They're probably going to have to pay more than $600,000 to keep Api Coruscant just because they've put all the power in their hands. So they're going to have to pay a premium to keep Api Coruscant.
They are. They are, which, I mean, maybe they should.
Yeah. Some green shoots. Can we talk some positives for the Tigers? Sorry, you go.
Well, the Perth Bears, like, let's say they can't make an offer till November 1. But if they speak to his management and say, it's going to be a game-changer offer, things change.
Yeah.
The Jerome, talking of forecasting ahead.
Can I tell you something on Api, though, just quickly as well? I am pretty sure that Api Coruscant is now trying to get a coaching clause put into his contract as well, as we speak. That's something that's new that's come to the negotiation table that his management wants in. So if Benji Marshall gets dismissed, Api can leave.
And there you go. That's why you don't let the silver go until you've got Api locked in. Or you have to be strong enough and say no. But then if you say no, then there's going to be suitors for Api Coruscant.
Yeah.
And you've just put yourself in this situation again. The Jerome Bula situation. It's a mutual option. And they're damned if they do and they're damned if they don't. Here, the Tigers. And again, when you're at the negotiating table, all these things sound great and they solve the problem of getting the deal done. But they've delayed a messy situation. Instead of just nutting out the deal with Jerome Bula, either this is what you're on for this year or this is where the deal ends, they've put themselves in a position now where they almost can't win. So Jerome Bula's probably not worth 900.
No. You know why some of this is happening though? Because this contract is so Isaac Moses is now managing Jerome Bula.
Yeah.
And this contract that they had in place is from his previous management.
Yeah.
So Isaac obviously doesn't want either option to get picked up because if not, the 900 option that the club has gets picked up, he won't get any commission. If the player option at 800 gets picked up, he won't get any commission. However, if they come to a fresh agreement, say it's 850, then Isaac Moses would get his commission.
Look,
so it's obviously that's a factor for sure.
It is.
And Jimmy, but if I was the Tigers, I'd say, mate, good luck getting 900 anywhere, Dream Buller. Like there's the fullback. There's so many clubs, and there were so many clubs with fullbacks. There's not many opportunities if you're a fullback. Dream Buller's a great young player, but he's not going to get more than 900 on the open market.
No, he's not, Charlie. No, he's not. But you think about the player's mind and state of mind. Going through all this, well, the people want to feel loved, and like I say, they've delayed a mess, and the mess is now here. How do you clean it up? You can't, because you're in that situation. Look, and on Isaac Moses, right? I know he gets a lot of criticism, but he's doing first off, he'll be doing the best for his client.
Absolutely, 100%.
Right? And look, knowing the clientele that Isaac Moses has, and talk of commission for 1 year at 5% on $800,000 or $900,000, although for a lot of people that is a lot of money. In the Isaac Moses world, he's not flapping around or affecting Jerome Bula's career for 5% of that 1 year of a deal. It's just preposterous.
Of course not. But he would want to probably get the contract under his setup as well.
And he'd be happy to wait a year if that clause.
Yeah, of course, if need be.
So here's the ramifications of that clause. Bula, the club go, we're going to enact it 900. They're overpaying, or they let Bula go to the open market, potentially lose him. Again, like we say, we've got 2 new teams coming into the competition. We can't escape that reality.
But, mate, they've got options there at fullback if Buller did leave. I don't think Buller wants to leave. I think he wants to stay at the West Tigers. But the Taruva was fantastic, I thought, at fullback.
Yeah.
On the weekend against the Roosters.
He was good against a poor Roosters side.
Yeah, but I thought Taruva was great into the high ball.
Yeah.
He was dynamic with his runs. He's an option there for them. They're not, like, desperate to keep Jareen Buller.
No, but... The Tigers are still the best. That's why they're in the D category. Yeah. And they snapped that losing streak against the Roosters just gone. Looking back at this season, improvement that they've had the odd blowout, but there's a lot of improvement. And I think if you're inside looking there, how much does all this stuff away from the field distract and affect the players? I think more than most would give credit for.
Yeah. Can we talk some positives about the West Tigers? Because I think there is some
performance
positives there.
Yeah. Terrell May.
An
amazing season so far.
Yeah.
Arguably the closest front rower to getting the Dally M.
Yeah, he's a huge chance still at this stage. I don't think James Tedesco is going to run away with him. We'll talk about your Dally M later on, but Terrell May, clear buy of the year candidate as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Without a shadow.
Another one of those guys who's a huge winner from Origin, and given what's happened, because all the talk is like, how do we not pick May? Your Toy Commander didn't offer a heap.
Yeah.
Max King didn't offer a heap. Where May would have been perfect in that.
Well, when you look at Stefano leaving, May coming in, the Tigers win from that. But you know what, Charlie? Not by design.
No.
And sometimes clubs will get lucky. But they wanted to keep Stefano. He went in a different direction. And before you, just bizarrely, Terrell May became available.
Yeah, exactly. Another positive for Tigers fans. If you're a Tigers fan and you love Benji Marshall as your coach, you can pretty much lock in that he's not going anywhere before April 30, because that is when Jerome Luai has up until then to make his decision on enacting his options.
Yeah,
and he's not going to do anything unless Benji is there.
No, he's got that loyalty to Benji. Big reason why he signed. But again, the Tigers put themselves in another situation that they delayed the mess.
It's a 2-year deal that he signed, Jerome Luai.
Yeah.
Yeah, with a 3-year option. Yeah.
3, but so it's a 5-year. Yeah.
It's not a real 5-year deal. It's a 2-year deal.
2-year deal.
Yeah. You can't champ it as a 5-year deal when there's 3 years of options.
But again, just delaying this mess and so much flow-on effect from these decisions that they undoubtedly are going to have to make at different points.
Especially when you give a Luai 1.2 million, you should have all the power over the contract if you're giving him that kind of money. Because he wouldn't have been getting offered $1.2 million a year anywhere else. That would have been the biggest offer by a substantial way.
Absolutely.
All right, what was that? Jimmy gave him a D?
A D.
Okay.
Yes,
right.
just on the Tigers looking ahead. The season can be a real positive one if they can bank those 2 wins against the Tigers.
Titans, you mean? Against the Titans, yeah.
Against the Titans, yes. Yeah. Sorry, I stand corrected. 2 games against the Titans are huge. So you go, that's 8 wins. If Tigers fans are looking at that, if internally they're examining the end of the 8 wins, it's been a long time since the Tigers have got 8 wins. It'd be huge for them.
Yeah. I think that would be a fair reflection of their season, though. I don't think they're anywhere near as bad as the Titans this year. They've been in tight games with Penrith. They pushed Canberra. They've been competitive in a lot of their games.
You're right there. That is correct. They're a lot better than what the Titans are. but they've got 2 huge games against them.
100%. They can't afford to lose them. Just before we move on as well, I think you're a bit harsh with the D, because at the start of the season we said anything above 16th would be a pass mark. So I assume that D is because of the off-field drama, not the on-field performances.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's fair, but it does affect the performance.
Yeah, I agree. The Knights, Newcastle Knights, I honestly think they've got the bleakest outlook of any club in the NRL looking forward. They've lost Leo Thompson for next year. They've given Dylan Brown a 10-year, $14 million deal. We don't know if Kalen Ponga's committed to the Knights long-term. They've got Adam O'Brien as their coach, who the pressure just continues to mount on. Jimmy, they're sitting 13th. They had a couple good wins. They beat the Dolphins. They beat Penrith during Origin. What have you made of their season?
Well, Charlie, you're right in what you say. They're the 3rd best defensive team in the competition in terms of points conceded at time of recording.
Yeah.
So, the Knights, they do the hardest part of the game, and they do it really well. State of Origin, what won Queensland the series ultimately was their defence.
100%.
So they, like I say, they do the hardest part. But I think you have to give them a D. I don't think you can give them a pass mark.
Yeah. I mean, it could go, these last few games could go really poorly for them as well. Ponga's out for the rest of the season with a Liz Frank injury. Not his first Liz Frank. I think he's done that already before.
Yeah, I think it's the other foot, this one. Okay. Yeah. But, okay, they do the hardest part, but why can't they get Ponga into those positions that at his brilliant best?
Well, it comes down to halves, but I don't think Dylan Brown's going to help them with that next year. Dylan Brown, when he's had to be a game manager and when Moses has been out, he hasn't done that job well.
No.
Dean Hawkins has been the more dominant half when Hawkins and Dylan Brown have played together, the Eels. I don't want to be too dramatic because all power to Dylan Brown. Congratulations. You're set for life. That's an incredible contract. You've worked incredibly hard to get there. Bravo. But that is a contract that could literally destroy the Newcastle Knights next 10 years, giving that much money of your cap away.
Absolutely. And always the questions will be around Kalen Ponga and his future. They've obviously had some issues around Jackson Hastings. Probably not too dissimilar to the Lewis Dodd situation.
Yep.
For different reasons. It appears as though off-field things around Jackson Hastings and again just unfortunately lost his mother, which be heartbreaking. Got himself back into the football team, but it's an underused half who's on a significant paycheck.
Yeah.
So how have they managed to let that situation affect them as much as they had? I mean, some things you can control, some things you can't. I mean, you probably would look and go, boys, or speak to the people at the club and say, if we'd have addressed this, we'd be way higher on the ladder than what we are. Because, like I say, they do the hardest part of the game really well.
Yeah. The Titans' job is going to become available, we expect, for coaches, but this Newcastle job could become available as well. Josh, it could become available. Of course it could. Of course it could.
No. Like I say, they do the hardest part of the game really well.
Yeah. But they can't score any points.
They can't. What have they done? They've gone and bought Dylan Brown to bring them opportunities.
Yeah.
So that's your pitch to the board, which all coaches would have to pitch or present rather to the board at the end of the season about the season summaries. Most of them would do that maybe on a quarterly basis.
I don't think Adam O'Brien's job is guaranteed to be safe that he's the coach there next year.
You don't think next year?
No, I don't think so.
I think you're mad.
I don't think so.
And he's probably got enough runway there because he's taken them to finals for a number of seasons.
Yeah.
I think that buys you time.
But mate, those years where they made finals, they had a decent roster. They're probably a team that should be making finals.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Like last year was maybe a bit, but last year was a funny year where you didn't have to be that good to make the top 8. There wasn't a heap of good teams last year, in all honesty. it was a 2-horse race. It was Melbourne and Penrith, and then a lot of mid-level teams. The year where they had, Tyson Frizzell was playing really well for them. They had the Saifidi boys going well. Ponga on fire. Like, I don't know. I really don't think he's safe necessarily. And I think Josh Hannay is someone that might get looked at for that job. I think he's probably going to get a few opportunities given how well he's gone as an assistant coach at different clubs he's been at and Origin as well. He might have might have the Titans, the Knights, and the Cowboys all looking at him. They're the three jobs that could become available.
I think O'Brien would be nervous. Like, realistically, he'd be nervous. But, again, you point back. I do the hardest part of the game well.
Yeah.
In a roster that doesn't scream, like, finals.
Yeah.
Bringing Dom Young back to the club, huge. Best, probably not had his greatest season on record. Probably due to a bit of injury, but they would just be. They put all their eggs in the Dylan Brown basket, and whether that was an O'Brien decision or a head of football or recruitment decision, we don't actually know. But I think O'Brien is pretty safe.
Have you given a rating for this team yet?
D. Yeah. D. Oh, look, yeah, you can't say that this is a pass.
No. I agree.
And probably some. Again, you look at the administration side of things or things away from the field that. Like if Leo Thompson is looking elsewhere, it's genuinely not a good sign.
No, exactly. He's going to be a big loss for them. It's been an average year for him.
Yeah.
This year, like in and out of the team with injuries, suspensions, and
and also when you know your team is unlikely to play finals and you're moving somewhere else, you can see. You don't excuse it, but you can see why.
Yep, definitely. The Cowboys, Jimmy, sitting in 12th, stack of Origin players. Stack of international players in their team. It's been a really disappointing year.
It has, Charlie, and they've chopped with their halves a few times. So difficult to figure out what is going on at the Cowboys. They're a D, by the way, because they have underperformed and almost D minus.
I'd have them as an E almost.
Yeah, they're in that. Like, in terms of underperformance, they're the opposite of the Knights, where Knights know how to do the hardest part, but the Cowboys seem like they're only really interested in attacking. That for and against is alarming. Minus 140. It's only 4 points less than the Titans. It's there's such a. Again, you know what? With the, I think they've got the second. No, they've actually conceded more.
Worst defense in the comp
than the Titans. They've played one more game. They played one more game than them, but still, that is just not good enough.
They've played one more game, but they've conceded 20 more points as well, though.
They are an all-out attack team. I know they lost Helam Lukey at the start of the season, and even when you look at like the difference in the halves, you've really got to question their areas around defense, including attitude, system. What's going on there? Like they currently find themselves in. Oh, what's their win-loss ratio?
They got 6 wins, 1 loss. Well, 6 wins, 1 draw, 9 losses.
I'm scared to put a line through them because I know because of their attack, they can get hot. Like they've got points all over the park, and because of the quality of roster, like you look at Tommy Deed and what he does in State of Origin, his attitude to defense.
Mate, not just Tommy Dearden, though. Like, here's some of the players in their team. They've got Jackson Perdue, who's one of the great young players in the game. You've got Murray Taulagi, who's an Origin winger when healthy. You got Scott Drinkwater, who's been 18th man in Origin before. Is a fantastic fullback, one of the best attacking fullbacks in the game. You've got Tom Dearden, the Wally Lewis medalist. You've got a forward pack, which has Griffin Neame, who is played for Kiwi International.
Johnny Bateman.
Johnny Bateman, Jason Tamalolo, Nanai. Even they've got guys like Jordan McLean, Ruben Cotter, Reece Robson's their hooker.
Yeah, mate. When you paint this picture,
it's a minimum top 8 team.
Absolutely, it is. But when you talk of coaches under pressure, you say about O'Brien. I think there'd be more heat on Payton.
Oh, yeah, I agree, and there is heat on Payton.
And there should be more. I don't like seeing it. Like it's horrible to see, but it comes with the territory, and because of that roster and the origin representation that they have, that they are underperforming. We talk of the ratings here about a C being a pass. That they're nowhere near a pass.
Yeah,
and they've got some difficult games to come as well. They Again, you can't write them off because I know because of that origin representation, because of the paper of the quality of their team, but that just defense is it seems optional. And the administration will talk about the delay of consequence and creating difficult situations later down the track.
Yeah. The Dragons, Jimmy.
Sorry, just quick. And the Cowboys have put themselves in that situation with Jason Tamalolo.
Yeah, the 10-year.
With the 10-year deal, what was it necessarily at the time? I don't know. It sounds great, but you
it was great for the first few years of it, though. As well.
Yeah, and he was probably being paid for the work he'd already done.
Yeah, mate, you think
In fact, no, he was being paid for the work he'd already done.
Yeah.
And if he could have stayed at that level for that 10 years, then it's a bargain. But you're making a bold prediction.
Definitely. At stages during that contract, though, there was talk of, is Jason Tamalolo going to be an immortal when it's all said and done? That conversation was had.
And I get that.
But yeah, it's back.
It was a big... From a playing point of view, you get all the favours the club getting on.
Yeah. I'm just pulling up now how many years he's actually got left on that deal because I think he's still got another one off. He's still got another couple of years to go.
Yeah.
End of 2027. End of 2027.
So you got 2 more this season and 2 more.
2 more. Yeah. At $1 million a year.
It's going to hurt. It really is.
It is hurting.
Yeah.
It is hurting.
And it's probably one of them where each year would be categorized as a win or a loss, Who wins here, the player or the club? Probably the club won the first few. And Jason, not win, but it's going to be the club don't win.
Yeah.
In the last couple of years,
he's not getting anywhere near $1 million if he hits the open market tomorrow.
No.
But, mate, the Dragons. So they're sitting 11th. They're 6 wins, 9 losses. I didn't really realize this until I started doing a bit of research before this potty. They've lost 3 games by a point.
Yeah,
they're 3 points away from sitting 5th on the ladder. If they had managed to close out those games against the Rabbitohs, the Eels, and the Warriors, they lost each of those by a field goal. They could, because for me, they're a very average side watching them play, and I think they've been pretty mediocre this year. But then you look at that and you're like, geez, they could have been so different for them.
You know the thing about the Dragons, the difference between their best and the worst, their best and their worst, is quite small. They're just a consistent football side, but it's consistently average. And I guess that shouldn't be taken in a derogatory way. They're just consistently average.
Yeah.
Which is exactly where they're at. And you're right, you do look back at a lot of team seasons and go, if only. They'll be having those internal conversations. Don't worry about that. You could make... I'm giving the Dragons a C. I'm giving them a pass. I think they get way too much criticism in the media because they are such a big club. You can never escape that shadow of the monumental size of the Dragons Football Club. They can't escape that. But I'm giving them a C pass because they're consistent, and with the players that they've got, they're around about where I think most people would expect them to be. If they've got those wins, it's a different story.
They're favourites for the spoon coming into the year. They were the betting favourites on Ladbrokes for the spoon.
So when you look at that, like massively overachieved.
Yeah, and they want an elite half. They want to sign an elite half, and who helps you in games decided by a point or less.
Yeah,
like that is what they're missing, and that the whole Flanagan thing. Like they see Flanagan, I think, more as a 14 anyway. They haven't got that good a roster at the moment, so that's why he's playing for them.
Exactly, yeah. And I mean, you're splitting hairs between him, Ilias. You are,
100%.
Who's going to be the 7? And King Tongi has come in, and Kyle plays a bit of 6, but you're literally splitting hairs. And one of those hair splits is the fact that the dad's the coach.
Something that's worked quite well for them has been Little and Cook on at the same time.
Let me tell you this: if Ilias plays and Flanagan doesn't, they're exactly where they are now.
Yeah,
nothing, and it's instead of the father son, it's the why have we got this guy from South?
Yeah,
like the South reject they'd be calling them.
100%.
Like, oh, it's time for Kyle to come in.
Yeah,
yeah.
So you give them a C.
Yeah, I think they pass.
Working our way up the ladder, Jimmy, then the Cronulla Sharks, who it's the same story for them that it has been over the last few years. Now, their record against top 8 teams, I'm going to exclude Manly from this for a second. I know they're sitting in the top 8, but if you take out Manly from the top 8, the Sharks' record against teams currently sitting in the top 8 is 1 win, 6 losses.
Wow. They've always had
They always do this. Every year they beat the teams towards the bottom of the ladder, and they can't beat the teams at the top. They've been given the softest draw the last couple of years. You know, this year their draw isn't as soft, and that's why they're sitting 10th with 8 wins, 8 losses.
Bizarre. The Sharks, I'm giving them a D. I don't think they would look at that as a pass at all. Like they are, for the roster that they have, again, compare them to the Dragons. Like they've got much better quality than what the Dragons do. But the Sharks are probably more consistently below average in terms of like how they perform. And they don't have that big origin style player, but they've still got a lot of quality within that football side. Cam McInnes, Nico Hines, Braden Trindle, Nickera, Adam Fanua-Blake.
Well, who are their 2 highest paid players, Jimmy? It's Nico Hines and Adam Fanua-Blake.
Yeah. I think Fanua-Blake's been good without being exceptional. Probably not as good as what he's been at the Warriors. Nico is always going to be made the scapegoat.
Mm-hmm.
And I know Coach Fitzgibbon is reluctant to entertain the idea of a positional reshuffle. And it's easy for us to say from outside the 4 walls, but I think it's something that's worth deep consideration, especially when you look at Kennedy and him being off contract. Obviously, you solve one, or you move one problem, you create another. Maybe it's Trindle at 7, and you look for somebody else at 6. And I know Cade Dykes is in there, the youngster that showed a lot of promise. I think he may be still injured, though, actually. But really disappointing, the Sharks.
Yeah.
I think maybe they fell into that trap of thinking, well, we've improved on last year. We were top 4 last year.
Yep, yeah, top 4. Prelim final, man.
Yeah.
Prelim final. Lost to Penrith in the prelim.
Yeah. You know, Fanua-Blake comes in, we're naturally just going to get better. But we'll be there at the back. We'll be top. Again, you look at them and you go, oh, they're probably a top 4 side with what's around at the moment. Maybe it's a mental side of we just need to. We'll be in the top 4 and then we'll fix it up in September. We got that finals hoodoo off our back. Got to win. We're just going to naturally keep on improving, but it hasn't happened. I know they suffered with a lot of travel at the start of the season, but it's not been an excuse for Canberra. Really disappointing with the Sharks. And they're in a battle to play finals. They got some tough games. They are in a favourable position because they have the 8 wins.
Yeah. You know, we're recording this before they played the Dolphins on the Friday. That's a massive game. And if they have lost that game and you listen to this, that's huge for their season. At Shark Park, losing a game like that.
This is one of those big games.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a few of them because the finals really, from the Sharks up, are all in contention. Mm-hmm. And you have the opportunity not just to get 2 points, but take 2 points off your competition.
Yeah.
And with the makeup of the top 8, is there room for, when you look at it from Panthers up are secure. I think you've got Dolphins, Seagulls, Roosters, Sharks, all competing for 2 spots. I don't know if there's room for, there's room for 2 of those 4.
Yeah.
But both of these teams up to their eyeballs. Sharks at home cannot afford to lose this game on Friday.
Sydney Roosters, they've had some good wins this year. They beat the Sharks, they beat the Broncos at Suncorp, beat the Dolphins, beat Penrith. All teams that are there in the top 8. It's been it does feel like a transition year for them though.
Yeah.
You know, they've obviously had Cheese leave. Coming into the season, they lost a stack of players, like a stack of legit rep players. I think it was 5 international players they lost coming into this season. But some great young players have emerged, and like guys like Fiketti, Siwa Wong's grown. Mark Nwangani-Tawase has been a great find for them. Like that, he scored 2 tries against the Tigers recently, and one of them was just like under 16s. You give it to the big kid, and he scores in the corner.
I can't believe how good he is.
Yeah, he's a freak.
Yeah, and you know when they lost Sualihi and Manu, Jared, a number of other senior key players, Kiri. I thought they were going to really struggle this year. I've given them a B. I think they're way over where they should be.
Yeah.
A lot of positives for the Sydney Roosters. I don't quite know whether they're in that mixer of finals. Can they get there? They've got some tough games around the corner. James Tedesco likely going to take out the Dally M, I feel, if he keeps on this trajectory with their remaining 9 games.
If they make the 8, Jimmy, they'll deserve to make the 8 because their run home is tough. It's on mostly teams in competing for the top 8. But I think if they make the top 8, they're a team that can actually make some noise. What's the stat? You need 5 Origin players or 4.8 Origin players is the average number of Origin players on a premiership winning team. Now, they've got 5 Origin players, and the confidence someone like Robert Toyle will have taken from the series. Like even in Game 3 where he gave Latrell Mitchell the shake and bake and put him on his knees, broke his ankles and got past him. Like he's a star.
Oh yeah.
And you think they lose Suali'i and Manu and then find themselves with Mark Nwangani-Tawase and Robert Toya is incredible.
Yeah. Big winners out of that, Roosters.
Yeah.
Big winners.
They're going to have they're going to have a challenge on their hands to keep Mark Nwangani-Tawase from 2027. He's always contracted for next year, 2026, but there's a lot of teams that would come for him in the NRL, but also it's really the Wallabies coming back for him and the lure of a home World Cup.
Yeah.
I think he'll go and have a crack at that Rugby Union home World Cup.
And you can totally understand that. But the Roosters should be aiming to keep him. Could be one of those situations where a salary cap exemption. I can't quite recall if Mr. Volandis and Mr. Rabbitohs said that they would entertain that idea of making allowances for players that play other codes and obviously to keep talent within the game. I think that's something that Roosters obviously have that reputation, that I guess public idea that they salary cap and them don't apply, or the rules don't apply to them. But I think this would be a genuine one with the Roosters. Probably the big story for their year is like, hey, super positive about the overachievement, moving on from Brandon Smith, but then the rumor that won't go away that the DCE deal is done and the reconsideration of that. Been interested to see. They didn't name Sandon Smith in the halves this week. Sammy Walker coming back. So that's a problem for the future. But with the Roosters, their ability to perform has been sensational this year with the young talent that's emerged. Like there was that game against the Sharks where one of the players was concreting the next day.
Yeah, Lasalu.
Yeah,
Taylor
like,
Lasalu.
This is just not normal. And the Fahu White, that's a big signing to keep him.
Sam Walker hasn't played yet either.
No Sam Walker.
He was going to come back from his ACL, broke his finger or hand, whatever he did. Yeah, mate, incredible year.
Yeah.
Incredible year.
And yeah, probably with finals around the corner, I think Robinson will be looking at Spencer Lenu to come in and shake a few feathers. I think he's had a relatively, by his standards, a quiet season. But all things being equal, huge season from the Roosters, a pass mark, beyond pass mark.
Yeah. If you're listening on Sunday, obviously Sam Walker's played yesterday on Saturday. So just great to see him back if he plays.
It is. He's been named, isn't he?
All right, Jimmy, working our way up the ladder. The Manly Seagulls, and they've been a bit like the West Tigers this year. They've been a reality TV of sorts. DCE, that whole saga. I mean, mate, honestly, you think about it, that happened this year. It feels like a lifetime ago.
Yeah.
That was the craziest thing ever that's happened in rugby league media. We had the CEO on NRL 360 claiming they were going to offer him a deal, or they had offered him. DCE then going on to the opposite rival network and saying they hadn't been offered a deal. Like it was car crash like TV. It was great viewing. All of it was great viewing. But he's leaving DCE. We think it's to the Roosters. We know it's to the Roosters. Tom Trbojevic, all the issues with his injuries, now playing in the centres, the pressure on Anthony Sebo having a couple of games to save his job. How do you sum their season up?
As a D. Like, there's no way you can give them a pass at C.
Okay.
I genuinely thought they were a top 4 team on paper. That was my observations, and I think most people would be in that camp as well. And they've just the Trbojevic dilemma about where to play him. DCE, huge loss with Paseka, but I mean, again, like all clubs go through this injury, but they've been really disappointing, Manly, like really disappointing, and on the field and off,
big time.
Yeah,
big time.
and they're no guarantees to play finals. They've got a huge next month of football. It's the Storm, the Dogs, and Raiders, I think, followed by the Roosters, if my memory is correct. And I think currently sitting on 8 wins with 8 games to go.
Yes, 100% right, Jimmy. Storm, Dogs, Roosters, Raiders.
Yeah.
All of those games are away from home except for the Roosters.
Like, and talking about these teams that are in that cluster to play finals, I think you're 13 to guarantee. I think 12 will get you in this year, or it might come down to 12 with 4 and against. So that puts Manly in. They need to win 5 to guarantee it.
I can't see that happening.
Well, maybe not, but maybe they're the team that needs to win 4.
Yeah, but
because there's also difficult run-ins for the Dolphins, the Roosters, and I can't recall the Sharks run-in, but I think it's
mixed. It's mixed.
It's mixed, and their inability to beat top 4 teams. So someone could limp in, or 2 teams could limp in with 12 and 12 records because of the quality of opposition.
If you were looking for like a dream scenario for finals, so every game's as competitive as possible, would you want Manly to make the 8? Because I personally would want to see the Roosters and the Dolphins be the 2 teams that finish 7th and 8th, because I think they can make a lot more noise than the Sharks and Manly.
Well, yeah, just with Trebojevic's performance, Tom, that is, against Souths. I know Souths are a bit poor, but he'd get me excited for finals.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. But massively underperformed on and off the field. Manly.
Yeah. The Dolphins then sitting in 7th, Jimmy. They've had some great wins this year. That's one of the reasons why I want to see them make the top 8. They've beat the Storm, Penrith, and the Bulldogs. First year under your man, Christian Wolf.
Didn't just beat them, Charlie.
Yeah. Put the cleaners through the
Like,
Dogs.
absolutely annihilated the Storm, annihilated the Dogs.
Yeah.
Like, they were 40-plus point victories.
Oh, mate, they score points for fun now.
Yeah. Isaiah Katoa, what a player. And let's not forget the players missing. Like, Katoa doing that without that forward pack. It's been incredible for the Dolphins. They're a B.
Yeah.
Easily, way over where a lot of people tipping them for the spoon. The Wayne Bennett case. Started the season 0-4. Let's not forget that. Well, sorry, you know what? You look at we are reviewing the season. Maybe we're the recency bias, but looking back there's some, you could say the cyclone affected them, but there were some poor performances at the beginning of the season.
Oh, but that's natural under a new coach.
More than made up for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mate, you look at the players they have out now currently. Plath, Gilbert, Flegler obviously still out of the game. Saifiti, Bostock did his ACL.
Yeah.
Jerry Marshall King had that infection.
Yeah.
He was in and out of the team. Like, they've done it with an injury-ravaged side, as injury-ravaged as anyone, and they've overachieved.
Yeah, definitely overachieved. Yeah, that's why I'm giving them a B. I'm slightly ignoring that start of the season, but I'm excited about what they can bring to the finals. I don't know if they're in a position to win it, but they can certainly ruffle some feathers in finals.
Mate, how good would it be if the Broncos and the Dolphins get that Brisbane derby week one? That'd be unbelievable. Rising up our way through the ladder, the Panthers, a really odd season. They went to Las Vegas and they had a fantastic win against the Cronulla Sharks. It was the Penrith of old. It was Nathan Cleary just dominating a game. Then after 12 rounds, they were sitting in 17th, literally bottom of the ladder after 12 rounds. Like, incredible. They couldn't find a partner for Nathan Cleary in the halves. They couldn't find any consistency after losing Jerome Luai and James Fisher-Harris in the middle. Now Talangi seems like he's made that 5'8" spot his own. Milky Jenkins has gone really well for them on the wing, and they're trying their hardest, and they're now sitting in 6th place.
Yeah, and of those games that they played and the losses that they picked up, they were never that bad, apart from the Dolphins game that springs to mind. The game against the Storm down in Melbourne, round 3.
Lost at home to the Cowboys, I think. That's a bad loss.
Yeah. Storm, round 3, I thought they were the better of the two teams. They lost Nathan during that game. The impact of Origin and the noise around Nathan could be... I can't see it destabilising him, only motivating him. I think you'd be a fool to have written off the Panthers. They're now, although they've got 7 wins, the draw, and there's some teams that have 8 wins, I think they're in the box seat to finish 5th or 6th.
Home final week 1.
Yeah, you talk about the Dolphins or the Roosters, that they'd struggle against Penrith in a finals game.
Yeah,
that would be. Look, I know Dolphins put the cleaners through them, but in a finals game, it's different gravy.
Yeah.
Panthers, the full snapshot of this season. Again, where we and I'm talking about expectation, it's a C+.
It could get a lot better than that, though, in this back quarter of the season or back third of the season.
Yeah. And listening to their players talk, they never talked of panic. A little bit of time to adjust and learn the defensive systems. Big turnover of players. But it's their systems that get them out of trouble. And, yeah.
Andrew Johns has put a line through them. He said they can't win it just because of basically what they're going to have to do to get there, these battles that they're going to have. The battle they had against the Bulldogs. I mean, even that win against the Tigers was a battle. Yeah, they've had to do things the hard way. They haven't really had anything easy. Mate, you know what's funny as well with Penrith is you never put a line through them. You put a line through them for top 4, which is probably correct. It's going to be really hard for them to make top 4, but they have done it the hard way. But mate, honestly, they can. If there's a team that can win the comp from the bottom 4, it is going to be them.
Yeah, we talk about them being in battles. That is their bread and butter. They love it.
Yeah,
and mate, with the situation at the finals at the moment, that I know there's 7 wins. and that one draw. We spoke about 13 getting them clear. I think they'll make the 8 comfortably, and they'll be able to dial it down.
Yeah,
towards the back end.
Well,
and
Cleary probably gets rested today.
Yeah.
He's not named in the 17, but I can't imagine he'd be backing up against Parramatta.
Yeah, I don't know about that one, but Cleary, Edwards, Martin. Be interesting to see how bad his injury is. They'll be pissed off about what happened at Origin. Come back to Clubland, and I think they can dial it down. And then when you look at the top 8, a lot of inexperienced teams there in the top 8, and especially when it comes to week 2 and 3 of the finals, we don't know what side of the draw they'll be on, but there wouldn't be a shadow of doubt in the Penrith players' mind that they can't win that comp.
One of the things you said you were worried about Penrith as well was how they managed the Origin period, given the terrible start they had, and then they're going to lose their Origin players. That's been the biggest miracle of their season.
The game against the Warriors.
How they've got through that, because they obviously round 12 without their Origin players, they got pumped by the Knights. But then since then, mate, they beat the Parramatta Eels. They've beaten the Tigers. They had a bye. They went to New Zealand, got the win.
Beat the Dogs.
And they beat the Dogs before the Origin team was named, and then they've had a bye. So they've done really well to get through that period.
No, I agree.
All right.
Broncos,
Jimmy. The Brisbane Broncos, a very odd year. It was major panic stations in NRL media only a few weeks ago, but they've won a few in a row now, and they're sitting 5th on the ladder. Yeah.
It's just quieting down the noise, hasn't it? They got away with a few of those victories. The one in particular against the Sharks. Probably their season, you'd give them a C so far, a pass mark. I think, and they would internally go, "Oh, it's okay. We nowhere near their potential." Obviously, the Ezra Mam coming back into the team has made a huge difference, so he was sorely missed. The Reynolds Hunt now in at dummy half, or named at dummy half. The situation around Selwyn Cobbo, the backing up of Payne Haas and Patrick Carrigan after Origin. They now find themselves in a position because of the Warriors' injury dramas. They'll make a charge for the top 4, but obviously destiny in Warriors' hands. I think for the Broncos to realistically win the comp, they need top 4. Although they'd fancy their chances again, given the inexperience of some of those top 4 sides. But the Broncos can't be happy with the season so far, and Walsh being injured as well. Like, look, there's
they haven't had their spine, their true spine.
Yeah.
This weekend is the first weekend. Tonight they're playing the Titans, where they've got Walsh, Mam, Reynolds, Hunt.
Yeah,
they haven't had that yet. This is the debut of that spine.
Yeah, and when you put it like that, with the middles of Willison, Carrigan, Haas, the strike of Staggs, Shibasaki coming back after Origin, the boost that he will have, like.
Cobbo in the wings if they need him. If they need a winger. If some man goes down, they've got him there still.
Look, I think the Broncos will be going all in for top 4, and that's the type of coach that Maguire is. That changes the goalpost significantly. But I think it's fair to say they've underachieved.
Yeah,
so
definitely,
far.
definitely, mate. I think I'd give them a B. Or a C plus even, or a B minus maybe, not a full B.
Yeah, probably B minus. Yeah,
because I think just because they haven't had that spine together.
Yeah.
These last 9 games, the chance for those to build that combination really, really well. And like if I was a Broncos fan, I'd feel pretty confident. Say the ladder finishes the way it is now, and Raiders play the Warriors first v 4th, week 1 of finals. Broncos finish 5th. I'd feel pretty confident if I was a Broncos fan about going over to New Zealand and winning that game.
Yeah.
And then you're in a prelim final against, the Storm or the Dogs. You wouldn't.
Yeah.
You believe. You'd have belief.
Yeah.
They can win the comp this year, the Broncos still.
Yeah, they can. Again, I think all in for top 4. And I think that will be, like I say, the target, and there'll be no or very little resting of Origin players.
Yeah. For the Warriors, Jimmy, I think the 3 words, unfortunately, are going to define their season. The anterior cruciate ligament.
Yes.
ACL injuries to Mitch Barnett, their best forward, or arguably their best forward, alongside James Fisher-Harris, and obviously Luke Metcalf as well.
Giving them an A so far.
Yeah, I think that's a very good decision by you.
I can't fault what they brought to the competition. They lost in Vegas and was dreadful. Thought it was going to be bottom 4.
They looked horrific in Las Vegas.
What a change. Metcalf, such quality. They've got some big decisions to make about the makeup of their, or who takes over the fullback from Nickel Cluxter being out. But I can't congratulate the Warriors enough for the season that they've put together.
Do you think they hang on to that top 4 spot?
Look, their draw suggests yes, but their roster says probably not. I think it. You ask that question: can they hang on to the top 4? It's probably more about Brisbane than it is about the Warriors.
Well, Brisbane will need to be nearly perfect, though, I reckon.
Their for and against is favourable, so if they
it is favourable.
If they equal the Warriors, the Broncos are only 1 win behind the.
Yeah, but they're 2 losses. They're 2 losses behind, and the Warriors have 5 more games in New Zealand. They play the Titans. They play the Tigers. They play the Titans twice. Sorry, played Titans twice. They got Parramatta at home. They got the Dragons at home. They've got 2 tough games, Jimmy, really, the Warriors. They've got to go on the road to the Bulldogs, and they play the Dolphins at home. Or maybe 3. They go to Brookie over the last game of the season.
What Warriors should, but there's no guarantees. But they're an A+ for the season so far.
The Canterbury-Bankstown Bulldogs, Jimmy, sitting in 3rd on the ladder. It was an A++++.
It was.
They were flying. They were sitting top of the table. Then Gus Gould's tinkered.
Oh, God.
And the roster's changed. Lockie Galvin's come in. And you guys have hit a slump, Jimmy. The Dogs have hit a slump in this middle patch of the year.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually saw Chairman Adam DeRusi at a Bulldogs function for State of Origin last night. And I said, mate, I'm surprised you're still in a job. He says, what do you mean? I said, well, I'm surprised you've not been moved on because Lockie Galvin's come to the club because he should be the chairman as well.
Yeah.
And he took that well.
What did he say? No, we only just move our halves to the centres.
Yeah.
We move our half to hooker.
Yeah.
We move our hooker to the bench. We shuffle things around.
Yeah.
Is that all? Is that what he said?
Yeah. Said, no, mate, don't be
worry.
daft.
We only move all the players into different positions. We don't move the executives.
Yeah. But again, a lot of non-football related issues coming for the Dogs. They're a big media story. They're a big club that demand a lot of attention, not too dissimilar to the Broncos in that where a lot of decisions are scrutinised, and I'm part of that, being the media. No doubt I look at through more critical eye a club like the Broncos than one that would do like the Dogs. I think the Galvin situation will pay off long term. They've got some figuring out to do in the short term. Again, best defensive team in the competition, in the top 4 for where I think most people thought they'd be at. It's above.
Yep.
That's probably fair.
Yeah.
And I guess the way the competition is going along, I think week 1 we'll see them play Melbourne.
Yep.
Whether that's at a core stadium or at Amy Park remains to be seen.
It does. I think they could rue having those couple of losses though, because having it at core stadium or Amy Park is a huge difference. They're having that home crowd there at the core stadium. That, like, who did they just lose to on the weekend? Just gone Broncos. Like, and they were home 18-0 up. That's something they're going to rue. The poor performance against the Dolphins. Could cost them. Those are 2 games that they should have made, coming into them, they would have expected to win.
Again, I know a lot of our listeners shoot me down for this. I know you shoot me down for this. Their performance against the Panthers if you can replicate that performance in finals, you are going to go deep.
Yes. But who won that game in the
I
end?
know who won that game.
The Penrith Panthers
I know they
won
won
that
the game. I know.
And the Penrith Panthers had like
I remember they won that game. I was there. You constantly remind me, but I'm looking at it through the perspective of performance.
Yeah. It was what, 5-day turnaround for Penrith coming from New Zealand.
It was.
I guess
yeah.
Origin players coming back into the team, but yeah. Okay. The Melbourne Storm, Jimmy, they're sitting in second on the ladder. Their best wins probably against Penrith, mate. If you're actually going to have a look at their draw, their draw's been very soft to date. They haven't had to play that many good teams, and they've got a tough run home. They've got the Chooks twice, they got the Dogs, they got the Broncos twice, and they've got Penrith away.
Yeah. Probably a B for Melbourne.
Yeah.
Like, I think before a ball was kicked, most people had them like romping to a minor premiership.
Yeah. They were considered the clear premiership favourites. I mean, they still are. They're like $2.80 to win the comp.
They have not played anywhere near their potential best. And they've had some games where they've certainly not needed to. And some of those Sunday afternoon games at home at Amy Park have just been like not even fair with their level of attack. Interested them to hear they say we've not won a game through our defence. The best opportunity for that was probably against the Dragons at Cogra, where they did slip up.
They nearly lost to the Bunnies the other week as well. Latrell Mitchell field goal.
I think we keep waiting for them to hit full top gear. And you know what, Charlie, with that run home, it's probably exactly what Coach Bellamy wants. Like those really tough games.
Yeah.
Not find out where his team are at, but show where his team need to go. So yeah, they get a B.
Did you do your rating for the Dogs, or did I not ask you that one?
I give them a B.
A B, okay. Yeah, all right, well, top of the table, Jimmy, we're going to finish off with the Canberra Raiders. Your tip for the spoon.
A+++++. Top of the class, teacher's pet, 100 out of 100.
Yeah.
No messing. Got it wrong. Few reasons for that. Whiten deciding he would be in a better, have a better opportunity to win a comp itself. It's only a couple of years.
He's been at South for 2 years now, isn't he?
Yeah. This is his second year. This is second year.
Sorry, yeah.
But that, within the last 18 months.
Yeah.
They finished 8th or 9th last year, maybe 9th. They missed out on the finals on points differential. The year before, I think they finished 8th. There was nothing screaming out, with no real player acquisition, nothing screaming out to me going, this team is going to play like this each and every week. They started the season 2-2 as well.
Yeah.
We forget that, and then they just went on this incredible run. The win against the Sharks at home was the biggest win of the season for them. You could see how much that meant for them. Their never say die attitude, what that taught that group. They've been amazing. They've been a pleasure to watch. The combination of Tarpany, of Papali'i, the 9 combo of Starling and Owen Patty, the back rowers, they're set like.
You forget they lost Nate Nicholson in the back row as well, who was killing it when he was playing.
Ethan Strange has been a sensational. What a player he is. Raiders need to get him locked away because there'll be teams coming for him, no doubt.
If you were building a franchise and they were like, oh, who's our dream 5'8", I think every club would pick Ethan Strange for the next.
Yeah, definitely.
Mate, he's 19, 20 years old. Unbelievable.
They're an incredible football side, and under Ricky Stewart, they're just so dialed in. The big challenge now for the rest of the season is remaining focused. I think they've locked away that minor premiership. I can't see a team catching them.
They're only one loss ahead though of Melbourne, and Melbourne's for and against. Melbourne, like we just went through their run home, it's going to be tough. Canberra's run home is very easy.
Yeah, if I'd be perplexed if Canberra don't take up minor premiership.
If they get the minor premiership though, Jimmy, the Raiders, that is, they are a lock for the grand final.
Yeah. No.
I think they're a lock.
No, they're not a lock.
They'll beat They say they have the Warriors week 1.
Then a week off.
They beat them, and then they have a week off, and then they have a wounded Melbourne Storm or Canterbury-Bankstown Bulldogs, who's done it the hard way.
Yeah. Oh no, I get that, Charlie. 100% get that.
In Canberra,
and that will be the expectation. No, that will be the expectation.
Yeah.
And they, I think, are genuinely probably the second favourites to win.
Definitely.
Yeah. Behind, and that's probably being a bit too polite to Melbourne because of their real quality in the roster.
Yeah.
But I think Raiders would be genuine second favourites.
Just quickly then, before we wrap it all up, A++++ for the Canberra Raiders.
Yeah.
I want you to give us
one more plus.
The grand final, your Dally M winner, and then we'll wrap it up for today.
Grand final.
Dogs v Storm. I've got the Dogs to win, and I've got Matt Burton, Dally M medalist.
Panthers v Storm.
Not again. Not
what do you
again.
mean? Not again.
We can't have it again. We need different teams to be winning. I can't fathom another Melbourne Penrith grand final.
I'd love to see that final again.
I want to see them play in the prelim. I want to see them playing in week 2 of finals.
I get that.
I don't want to see them in the grand final. I want to see someone knock off Penrith, and like the team that goes and wins the comp actually take down Penrith. But we can't have another Melbourne Penrith grand final. But that's your prediction.
That's my prediction.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I've not gone through the proper. If this team finishes here,
we don't need to worry about that, mate. Because we don't know who's going to finish.
But I think, Storm Panthers final again.
And then who wins that? Storm. Penrith. Penrith go 5 in a row.
Here we go. Whoa. Panthers won 5 in a row. I like it. I like it. I like it. Who wins it, Charlie? Toss a coin.
James Tedesco.
The
grand final.
Toss a coin.
Toss a coin. You're tipping Penrith to win the comp. Yep, I like it, man. I can't fault that. And your Dally M medalist is James Tedesco.
James Tedesco, yeah. Unless, but barring, all things being equal, like if Teddy's being the best player, in the probably I think Katoa's probably been the best player, but Teddy's going to be the player that will take out the Dally M. He's been enormous this year.
Katoa has a chance of winning it for sure. I reckon don't rule out Terrell May as well.
In terms of standout players for their team. Unfortunately,
he's going to get all the points for Tigers.
Unfortunately, with Katoa though, I reckon Farnworth would take a lot of points.
Yeah, 100%. And they've had players step up for them at different moments. Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow as well has been great.
Yeah.
But
all right, Charlie.
The post-Origin report card.
Yes.
Enjoy the rest of the season.
Yes, looking forward to it. Strap yourself in.